battlefield of the mind is a place unseen yet fiercely real, a crucible where destinies are forged or fractured, where the quietest whisper can determine the course of a life. This is no ordinary conflict. It is the most vital war you will ever wage. It is not fought with armies or weapons of steel, but with the weapons of thought and spirit. Your mind is the gatekeeper of your soul, the threshold between who you are and who you are becoming. It is the arena where every victory or defeat begins. And if you do not master this inner battleground, it will master you. Imagine your mind as a vast garden, fertile and alive, where every thought is a seed. What you plant here will grow and bear fruit. Left untended, weeds of fear and doubt creep in, strangling the life God meant for you to flourish. This garden is not merely a passive space, but a dynamic field of battle. It is under constant assault by voices, images, pressures, and the swirling tempests of your own fears and regrets. Every day, every moment, the enemy seeks to plant seeds of confusion, worry, and despair. They whisper lies in the silence, sowing storms that threaten to uproot faith and hope. But hear this truth. The battlefield is not foreign land. It is your home. It is where you walk every second of your life, where you hold the power to rise or fall. Your thoughts are the architects of your future, each one a blueprint of the reality you will live. A single thought shapes your feelings, your decisions, your habits, and ultimately your destiny. When the mind is left unchecked, it becomes a fortress for fear, an arena for anxiety, a prison of past mistakes. But when the mind is disciplined and aligned with God's truth, it becomes a sanctuary of peace, a wellspring of courage, a powerhouse of divine strength. Your thoughts are not merely internal musings. They are spiritual forces that mold your world. The battle for your mind is the fiercest, because it controls everything else. Outside enemies lose their power when you hold victory inside. When your thoughts align with God, no external force can dismantle your purpose. But when you let the enemy sow doubt and fear, you give them the keys to your soul. Your mind becomes the battlefield where the fate of your peace, your success, and your very identity is decided. Understand this. The war you fight is silent but relentless. Every fleeting thought is a soldier in this fight. Some will seek to your faith with fear, others to rob your joy with regret, still others to blind you with confusion and lies. You may not always hear the battle cry, but the conflict rages on inside you. This is not a war to ignore or downplay. It is the war that defines the quality of your life and the depth of your walk with God. Your mind is more than a battlefield. It is a sacred space, a garden designed to bloom with faith, hope, and truth. God did not create you to live chained by the noise of doubt or to be overwhelmed by the flood of negative thoughts. You were made to stand firm, to cultivate a mind that reflects His glory. The victory begins here in the mind that refuses to surrender, that rises with every dawn determined to resist the lies and the fears that seek to consume it. This battlefield demands vigilance. It demands discipline. It demands that you refuse to allow every stray thought to take root. Not all thoughts belong to you. Many are intruders sent to weaken your resolve. But you have power. You have choice. The gates of your mind can be guarded with the sword of truth, the shield of faith. When you recognize the war within, you begin to understand the power you hold. You are not a passive victim, but a warrior in this unseen conflict, called to stand and fight for the peace and purpose God has placed within you. When you take control of your thoughts, you take control of your future. The enemy's strongest weapon is the assault on your mind, because once your mind is defeated, everything else falls. But once your mind is anchored in God's truth, you become unstoppable. Mountains become molehills. Obstacles become opportunities. Pain becomes a passageway to strength. This is the battle that no one else can fight for you. It is your fight, your garden to tend, your fortress to guard. So stand now with clarity and resolve. Your mind is not a battlefield to be lost. It is a kingdom to be won. The seeds you plant today will grow into the life you live tomorrow. Protect your garden fiercely. Refuse to entertain thoughts that do not bear the fruit of faith. Train your mind to rise above the noise. This war within is the war that determines your peace, your purpose, your power. The enemy may seek to storm the gates with doubt and despair, but you have a fortress built on the rock of God's promises. Here in this sacred ground, no fear has a place. No lie can survive. No despair can settle. Guard your mind with all the strength you have. This is where your victory begins. This is where your soul is secured. This is where the greatest battle of your life is fought and won. The mind is a restless sea, waves crashing in torrents of worry, fear, and uncertainty. Yet within this storm lies the harbor of peace, quiet, deep, unshakable, waiting for those who will anchor themselves in the eternal. To conquer this tempest, to rise above the relentless tides of anxiety and doubt, you must learn the art of surrender. Not a surrender to defeat, but a surrender to something greater, something unmovable and sovereign. Every thought is a wind that can either push your soul toward calm or toss it into chaos. The heart is the rudder, but the mind is the sail, catching every gust, steering the course of your spirit. When the winds of fear howl, the sail may tear, the rudder falter, and the vessel be lost to the depths of despair. But when the sail is mended by faith, when the rudder is steady in trust, no storm can sink you. The greatest mastery is not in controlling the winds outside, but in mastering the winds inside, the relentless chatter, the poisonous doubts, the invisible excellence that seek to steal your peace. To surrender your mind to God's truth is to place your soul's compass into hands stronger than your own. It is a conscious choice made daily, hourly, to reject the lies that scream louder than hope. It is the refusal to let your mind become a battlefield where fear is the victor. Instead, you anchor your thoughts in the rock of God's word, a fortress impervious to the fiercest attacks. This surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. It is the paradox of power found in humility of peace, born from letting go. It is the stillness that speaks louder than the storm. When you release the frantic grasp on control, you find a freedom so profound it reshapes your entire being. You begin to see that the storms of life are not meant to drown you, but to deepen your roots, to push you toward a faith unshaken by circumstance. The enemy fights to keep you trapped in a prison of your own anxious thoughts. But your surrender breaks those chains. It is the key that unlocks the door to peace. And peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of God amid the struggle. A quiet confidence that no matter the chaos around you, you are held in a hand far greater than yours. Every time anxiety threatens to claim your mind, you have a choice. You can yield to the tidal wave of worry, letting it flood your soul, or you can anchor in the truth that transcends fear. This is the essence of faith, the defiant stance that declares, though the winds rage and the seas roar, I will not be moved. It is a daily war fought in the trenches of your thoughts, where the victory is peace amidst a storm. To live without surrender is to drift endlessly on the restless sea of doubt. To live with surrender is to sail with the wind of God's Spirit, steady and sure. The difference is not circumstance but perspective. The storm may still rage, but the heart is anchored. The waves may still crash, but the soul is secure. And in that security, in that stillness of surrender, you find the power to overcome every storm. This surrender calls you to a radical trust, a complete yielding to the God who sees what you cannot, who holds what you fear losing, who commands the storms with a word. It is a trust that breaks the chains of fear and sets the captive free. It is a trust that does not demand answers but rests in the promise of presence. When your mind surrenders to this truth, it becomes a place of refuge, a sanctuary where peace reigns despite the noise. The process is not instantaneous. It is a daily battle to let go of control and lean into faith. It is the courageous act of laying down your fears, doubts, and uncertainties like armor at the feet of the one who conquered all fear. Each time you surrender, your mind is strengthened. Each time you choose trust over turmoil, the storm loses its power. This is the pathway out of the tempest. Surrender. Surrender not to defeat, but to the overwhelming love and sovereignty of God. Surrender to the promise that He is working all things for your good, that no wave can wash you away if you hold fast. Surrender to the still small voice that speaks peace when the world shouts chaos. This surrender is the greatest victory you will ever know. Let the storms come. Let the winds blow. Your mind anchored in God's truth will not be moved. The sea may rage, but you will stand firm, unyielding, unshakable, undefeated. This is the peace that passes understanding, the strength that conquers fear, the light that outshines every shadow. So embrace this surrender, not as defeat, but as triumph. Let it be the battle cry of your soul, a declaration that no storm, no fear, no enemy thought will ever claim your mind. For in surrender you find the fortress of peace, the unbreakable shield, the sword of truth that cuts through every lie. Your mind is a battlefield, but also a sanctuary. In surrender it becomes the sanctuary where God's peace dwells, a refuge no storm can touch. This is the secret to overcoming, the secret to mastering the restless sea inside you. Let go, trust, anchor your soul in the eternal, and watch as the storms lose their power and you rise steady and strong, unshaken by anything this world can throw. The heart is the furnace where the fires of life burn, sometimes warming, sometimes scorching. It is a fragile flame, flickering against the winds of pain, loss, and betrayal. Yet it is also the crucible where resilience is forged. To live fully is to carry this fire, not to smother it, but to let it purify and transform. Within the furnace of the heart, every trial becomes the coal that refines the gold of your spirit. Pain is not a curse, but a catalyst. It is the hammer striking the anvil of your soul, shaping you into something stronger, something more beautiful. The wounds you bear are not scars of defeat, but marks of endurance. They tell a story of survival, of a spirit that refused to break even when everything seemed lost. To embrace your pain is to honor your humanity, to recognize that within suffering lies the seed of redemption. There is a sacred alchemy, and sorrow. It turns bitterness into compassion, despair into hope, brokenness into wholeness. When the heart is broken, it becomes a vessel for grace, a channel for love that flows deeper than before. The cracks in your soul are not flaws. They are the places where light enters, where healing begins. Each fracture is an invitation to trust beyond your understanding, to lean into a presence that does not abandon even in the darkest hour. The fire within you is God's spark, a divine flame that neither fades nor falters. It is the pulse of life itself, beating in rhythm with eternity. When the world tries to extinguish this flame with cruelty or neglect, it only reveals its true strength. Like the phoenix rising from ashes, your heart can be reborn, glowing brighter, burning fiercer. This fire is your identity, your courage, your refusal to be diminished by the weight of suffering. To nurture this flame requires courage, the courage to face your own brokenness without shame, to open your heart to the unbearable, to surrender the illusion of control. It is an act of vulnerability that demands faith, the faith that even in the furnace you are not alone. God is there not as a distant observer, but as a companion who walks through the fire with you, shielding you from destruction, guiding you toward transformation. The heart's furnace is where love is tempered. It is easy to love in times of joy, but true love is forged in hardship. It is the love that forgives when it hurts most, that reaches out when it is easiest to withdraw, that perseveres beyond the pain. This love is the essence of God's presence in you, a love that cannot be quenched by suffering, a love that turns pain into purpose. Each scar on your heart tells a story of survival and hope. They are the living proof that you have endured storms that sought to drown you but could not. They are the testimony of a soul that has faced darkness and chosen to keep moving forward. The more you allow yourself to feel, to grieve, to embrace the fire within, the more you discover a reservoir of strength you never knew you had. The process of healing is neither quick nor easy. It demands patience, surrender, and the willingness to walk through pain rather than around it. It asks you to trust that the fire is not consuming you but refining you. It invites you to let the flames burn away fear, resentment, and despair until only the purest part of you remain, your true self made whole through grace. This transformation is the divine paradox. Strength through weakness, life through death, hope through suffering. It is the mystery of resurrection lived out in the heart of every believer. You are invited to embrace this paradox, to stand in the fire without fear, knowing that you are being made new, being shaped into the person you were always meant to be. To nurture your heart's fire, you must protect it from the winds of cynicism and despair. Guard it with truth and hope. Feed it with prayer and purpose. Let the words of faith be the fuel that keeps the flame alive when all else seems lost. This fire is not just for you. It is a beacon to others, a light that pierces the darkness, a warmth that draws the lost home. The heart that embraces its pain and nurtures its fire becomes a sanctuary for others. It becomes a place where broken souls find rest, where weary spirits are renewed. Your suffering, when surrendered to God, becomes a bridge that connects you to others in their pain. A testimony that God's grace is real and powerful. The fire that once threatened to consume you now becomes a source of light and warmth to those around you. Never underestimate the power of your heart's fire. It is the divine spark within you, the eternal flame that no darkness can overcome. It is the courage to love fiercely, the strength to endure relentlessly, the hope to believe endlessly. This fire will carry you through every winter, every storm, every night of despair. So tend this fire with reverence. Let it burn bright and bold. Allow it to consume what is dead within and illuminate what is alive. The furnace of your heart is where transformation takes place, where pain meets grace, and where brokenness is made beautiful. Trust the process, embrace the fire, and watch as your soul is refined into something radiant, unbreakable, and full of life. There is a profound power in surrender, the willingness to lay down your burden, to release control over the chaos swirling around you. It is not weakness, but the ultimate strength, a declaration that you trust something far greater than your own hands, far deeper than your own understanding. Surrender is the open door through which grace enters, a sacred space where fear begins to loosen its grip and peace takes root. To surrender is to say, I am not the master of my fate. I am held in the hands of a God who knows the secrets of my soul. It is the gentle yielding that paradoxically frees you, untangling the knots of anxiety and despair that bind your spirit. The soul that surrenders rises above the tumult of circumstance and finds its anchor in a steadfast love that never fails. In the modern world, surrender is often misunderstood as defeat, a giving up in the face of adversity. But true surrender is a sacred resistance, a powerful refusal to be defined by struggle or circumstance. It is the surrender of pride, the release of illusion, and the embracing of a divine plan that is beyond human comprehension, but filled with mercy and hope. Every step towards surrender is a step into vulnerability, where your defenses come down and your true self is exposed. It is terrifying and liberating all at once. Yet within this vulnerability lies a strength so profound it can carry you through the darkest nights of your soul. Here in this sacred surrender, your brokenness becomes a pathway to wholeness. God invites you to this surrender, not to punish, but to heal, not to control, but to liberate. This invitation is tender, persistent, and personal, calling you beyond the clamor of fear to a place where love reigns supreme. To surrender is to trust that the God who created you knows the way, even when you cannot see the path ahead. Surrender does not mean inactivity or passivity. It means aligning your will with the divine will. It is active faith, a purposeful choice to let go of what you cannot carry and to pick up the strength that only comes from reliance on something greater. It is the courage to move forward even when the way is unclear, knowing that you are never walking alone. The beauty of surrender is that it transforms the landscape of your soul. It turns despair into hope, confusion into clarity, and chaos into peace. When you surrender, you stop fighting a battle you were never meant to win alone. And you begin to walk in step with the one who holds the universe in his hand. This surrender is not a one-time event, but a daily, sometimes hourly decision to release control and to rest in God's grace. It is the deep breath before the storm, the stillness in the midst of noise, the calm center of a spinning world. Each act of surrender pulls you closer to the heart of God, where healing flows and courage is renewed. The process is often painful. It demands humility to admit that your strength is limited, that your plans are fragile, that your understanding is partial. But it is in this humility that you discover a new kind of power, a strength born from dependence, a wisdom born from trust, a peace born from surrender. Surrender opens your eyes to the ways God is working even in the chaos. It teaches you to recognize the quiet movements of grace that sustain you. An unexpected kindness, a sudden insight, a comforting word. These small miracles are the footprints of God's presence guiding you gently, lovingly toward your healing. In surrender, you learn that control is an illusion, but hope is real. You learn that letting go is not losing, but gaining freedom from fear, freedom from false expectations, freedom to be who you truly are. This freedom is the gift of surrender, a gift that cannot be earned but only received with open hands and an open heart. As you surrender, you are invited to lay down not only your burdens, but also your judgments of yourself, of others, of your circumstances. In this release, grace flows like a river, washing away bitterness, resentment, and regret. Your heart becomes lighter, your spirit clearer, your vision renewed. The surrender of your soul is a sacred dance, a dance between your will and God's will, between your hope and divine promise. It is a dance that requires trust, rhythm, and the courage to step forward even when you cannot see the next move. But in this dance, you are never alone. The divine partner leads with a steady hand and a loving heart. You are not made to carry your burdens alone. The invitation to surrender is an invitation to freedom, to peace, to a love that surpasses understanding. It is the gateway to transformation, the door to a new way of living, a new way of being. So surrender your fears, your doubts, your need for control. Surrender your pain, your regrets, your failures. Surrender your hopes, your dreams, your future. Give them all into the hands of the one who holds all things together, who makes all things new, who loves you beyond measure. In that surrender, you will find strength you never imagined, peace that surpasses all understanding, and a joy that no circumstance can steal. You will find a God who walks with you through every valley, who lifts you from every pit, who sets your feet upon a rock. Let go and let God. Let the great surrender be your refuge and your strength. And in that sacred surrender, discover the life for which you were created, full, free, and overflowing with grace. The path of faith is not paved with certainty, but with the courage to believe when all evidence points otherwise. It is the choice to hold fast to hope when darkness stretches endlessly before you, a fierce refusal to let despair have the final word. This faith is not a passive waiting, but an active wrestling, a steadfast grappling with the unknown, with pain, with unanswered questions, yet never letting go. Faith is the thread that stitches the broken pieces of life into a tapestry of meaning. It is the quiet whisper in the storm, the flame that refuses to be extinguished by wind or rain. When the world shouts of chaos, faith listens for the still small voice beneath the noise. A voice that calls you onward deeper into the mystery of grace. To live by faith is to live with open eyes, not blind to reality, but seeing through the veil of despair to a higher truth. It is to trust that the shadows you face are temporary, that beyond the night lies the dawn. Faith does not deny the pain, but embraces it as part of a greater story, one that God is writing with perfect wisdom and infinite love. The heart that holds on to faith in the face of adversity is a battlefield where fear is conquered, not by the absence of struggle, but by the presence of a steadfast hope. This hope is a shield, a sword, a refuge. It transforms the impossible into the possible, the weak into the strong, the lost into the found. Faith calls you to move forward when the way is hidden, to step into uncertainty with the trust that God's hand will guide each footfall. It demands a surrender of self-reliance and a bold dependence on divine power, an acknowledgement that your strength alone is not enough. In this surrender, faith flourishes, growing stronger in the fertile soil of vulnerability. There is a sacred beauty in the struggle of faith, a divine intimacy born in the tension between doubt and belief. Each question, each tear, each moment of longing is a thread woven into the fabric of your spiritual journey. God meets you there in your brokenness, your confusion, your yearning, and offers a peace that transcends understanding. Faith is not a destination but a journey, an ongoing conversation between your soul and the divine. It is the willingness to be led even when the destination is unclear, to trust the guide even when the path is steep and treacherous. This journey refines you, shaping your character, deepening your compassion, expanding your capacity for love. In faith you discover a strength that is not your own, a power that lifts you beyond yourself. You find a community that shares your struggle and your hope, a fellowship bound not by perfection but by grace. Together you walk this narrow road, supporting one another, bearing each other's burdens, celebrating each step of progress. Faith transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It colors the mundane with purpose, infuses every breath with meaning, and turns every moment into an opportunity to witness the miraculous. When faith is alive, life is never dull or meaningless. It is a canvas upon which God paints a masterpiece of redemption and renewal. To live by faith is to trust that your story is not random or forgotten, but is woven into the grand narrative of God's love for the world. It means believing that your pain has a purpose, that your trials are a refining fire, and that your suffering will yield a harvest of hope. This belief sustains you when everything else fails. The call to faith is also a call to courage. The courage to face your fears, to confront your doubts, to walk forward in obedience even when the way is steep and the night is long. It is a courageous surrender, a holy daring to trust that the God who began a good work in you will carry it to completion. Faith liberates you from the tyranny of certainty and the paralysis of fear. It frees you to live boldly, to love deeply, to hope fiercely. In this freedom, you become a beacon of light in a dark world, a testimony to the power of God's redeeming love. Your life becomes a story of grace, a living sermon of hope. In moments of weakness, faith sustains you. In moments of triumph, it humbles you. It teaches you that victory is not measured by worldly standards, but by the depth of your trust and the breadth of your love. It shows you that every step taken in faith is a step toward the fullness of life God intends for you. Faith does not promise an easy road or an absence of struggle. Instead, it promises presence, that God is with you in every moment, every trial, every victory. It promises strength, that you will not face your battles alone, but will be empowered by a power greater than your own. It promises hope that the darkest night will give way to the brightest dawn. As you nurture your faith, you will find it growing like a mighty tree, its roots deep in the soil of God's promises, its branches reaching toward the heavens. It will shelter you from storms, nourish your soul, and bear fruit that feeds the hungry and comforts the weary. So hold fast to your faith, especially when the winds howl and the storms rage. Let it be the anchor that holds your soul steady, the lamp that lights your path, the song that lifts your spirit. In faith you find not only a way to endure, but a way to thrive, a way to live fully and love deeply in a world desperate for hope. Your faith is a gift, a treasure, a living flame. Guard it, nurture it, let it shine brightly, and through it you will discover the unshakable truth that you are never alone, never forgotten, and forever loved. In the quiet moments of reflection, when the noise of the world fades and the heart is laid bare, you come face to face with the profound reality of grace. Grace, the unearned, unmerited favor of God, descends like a gentle rain on parched earth, reviving what was thought lost, renewing what was broken, and restoring what was shattered. It is a love so vast it defies comprehension, so tender it soothes the deepest wounds, so powerful it breaks chains and sets captives free. Grace is the invitation to come as you are, with all your failures, your doubts, your scars, without pretense or shame. It whispers that you are worthy not because of what you have done, but because of who you are in the eyes of God. This grace is a balm for the weary soul, a refuge for the broken heart, a light that shines in the darkest places within. To receive grace is to be lifted from the depths of despair to the heights of hope. It is to be embraced by a love that does not condemn but redeems, does not reject but restores. Grace turns ashes into beauty, mourning into dancing, and sorrow into joy. It is the divine artistry that transforms the ordinary clay of your life into a vessel of glory. But grace is not merely a gift to be received. It is a power to be lived. It calls you to a new way of being, a life marked by humility, compassion, and forgiveness. It challenges you to extend the same mercy to others that has been shown to you, to be a conduit of God's love in a world desperate for healing. In grace there is freedom. The freedom to let go of guilt. The freedom to embrace your true identity. The freedom to live without the burden of perfection. This freedom is not license to live carelessly, but a sacred empowerment to live courageously, authentically, and generously. Grace invites you to release the chains of bitterness and resentment, to forgive those who have wronged you, and to seek reconciliation where there is division. Forgiveness is the fruit of grace, a gift both given and received that breaks the cycle of pain and opens the door to peace. In forgiveness you find liberation, not just for others but for yourself. The journey of grace is often marked by struggle and surrender. It requires the courage to face your own brokenness and the humility to admit your need for healing. It is a path that leads through the valley of shadows but promises the light of redemption. With each step you learn to trust the God who is faithful and just to heal and restore. Grace is the heartbeat of the gospel, the message at the center of the Christian life. It is the truth that you are loved beyond measure, that nothing can separate you from that love, and that your life has infinite worth and purpose. This truth anchors your soul and gives you strength to persevere. Living in grace means embracing a life of gratitude, a constant awareness of the blessings that surround you, seen and unseen. It is the recognition that every breath, every moment, every relationship is a gift from God. Gratitude opens your eyes to the goodness of life, and fills your heart with joy. Grace also calls you to action, to live out your faith in tangible ways. It compels you to serve the poor, to stand with the oppressed, to bring hope to the hopeless. When grace flows through you, it becomes a river that nourishes the earth, a light that shines in the darkness, a song that uplifts the weary. In moments of doubt, when you question your worth or wonder if you are truly loved, return to grace. Let it wash over you like a healing tide, reminding you of your identity as God's beloved child. Let it quiet the voices of condemnation and fill you with peace that passes understanding. Grace is a constant companion, a faithful friend who never abandons you. It meets you in your failures and lifts you up, meets you in your fears and gives you courage, meets you in your loneliness and offers comfort. In grace you find a love that never quits, a hope that never fades, a joy that is eternal. So live boldly in grace. Let it shape your thoughts, your words, your actions. Allow it to soften your heart and widen your embrace. Through grace you become a beacon of God's love, a living testament to the power of redemption and renewal. Remember, grace is not a destination but a journey, a lifelong unfolding of God's mercy and kindness in your life. It is the thread that weaves together the fabric of your faith, the foundation on which you stand firm, the light that guides your steps. In the embrace of grace you are made new, restored, and empowered. You are given a hope that cannot be shaken and a love that will never fail. This grace is your story, your strength, your salvation. Let it transform you from the inside out. Let it propel you forward with courage and compassion. Let it be the song your soul sings, the story your life tells, the legacy you leave behind. The soul's journey is marked by choices, forks in the road where the weight of decision presses heavy, and the path forward demands courage beyond the familiar. In these moments, faith emerges not as a mere thought, but as a living force, a fire ignited within that guides through the wilderness of uncertainty. It is the quiet assurance that even when the night seems endless, dawn is coming and the light will find you. Faith is more than belief. It is trust that transcends reason, a surrender that is both an act of the will and a gift from the heart. It is the anchor in storms that batter the spirit, the quiet voice that says, "You are not alone." Faith refuses to be shaken by the shifting sands of circumstance, standing firm on the rock of God's promises. When doubts arise, and they will, faith does not demand answers, but invites us to walk forward anyway. It embraces the mystery, holding fast to hope when the road is obscured and the future uncertain. This is the faith that moves mountains, not because it understands every detail, but because it knows the one who holds every detail. In the crucible of suffering, faith is refined like gold in the fire. It is tested and purified, not to break but to strengthen. Pain and loss carve away the dross, revealing a deeper resilience, a fiercer resolve. Faith grows not in ease, but in endurance, blossoming in the soil of perseverance. To live by faith is to live in the tension between what is seen and what is unseen. It is to walk forward with eyes fixed on the invisible hand that guides, the eternal purpose that calls. It is to believe that every trial is a thread in a tapestry of grace, every hardship a step toward a destiny shaped by love. Faith calls you to risk, to step into the unknown with a heart open to possibility. It is the courage to speak truth in the face of silence, to love when love seems lost, to hope when hope is faint. This courage is not reckless but rooted in the certainty that God's presence accompanies every step. When the world demands proof, faith offers a deeper knowing, a witness born of experience and encounter. It is seen in the peace that surpasses understanding, in the joy that defies circumstances, in the love that heals wounds no eye can see. Faith is the unseen light that shapes the visible world. Yet faith is never solitary. It is woven into the fabric of community where believers encourage and strengthen one another. In fellowship, faith is nurtured, doubts shared and diminished, hope renewed. Together the journey is less daunting, the path less lonely. The power of faith lies in its transformative nature. It changes the way you see yourself and others, reshapes your priorities and reorients your purpose. It turns fear into boldness, despair into hope, isolation into belonging. Faith is the lens through which the world is viewed, anew, vibrant with possibility and grace. Faith challenges complacency. It calls you out of comfort zones into lives marked by action and sacrifice. It demands that belief be lived, that love be shown, that justice be pursued. In faith, you become an instrument of change, a voice for the voiceless, a light in the darkness. There is a sacred rhythm in the dance of faith and doubt, belief and questioning. Both are part of the human condition, and both are embraced by a God who invites honest dialogue with the soul. Faith does not erase doubts but holds them gently, allowing the space for growth and understanding. Faith teaches patience. It waits in the silence, trusts in the unseen, hopes in the promise yet to be fulfilled. This patience is not passive but active, an expectancy that moves the heart to prayer, the hands to service, the feet to steady steps forward. In moments when faith feels fragile, return to the source. Immerse yourself in the Word, the stories of those who walked before, the witness of saints who stood firm. Let their courage and testimony rekindle the flame within, reminding you that faith is both gift and choice. Faith opens the door to grace, for without faith, it is impossible to please God. It is the key that unlocks the heart to receive the fullness of God's love and mercy. In faith you find rest for your soul, strength for the journey, and a peace that defies understanding. To walk by faith is to embrace a life of mystery and wonder. It is to say yes to the unseen, to trust in the power of God's Spirit at work within and around you. It is to live with eyes fixed on the eternal, hearts anchored in the divine. Faith is a call to rise above the noise, to seek the still small voice amid the clamor. It is a beacon that shines through the fog, a compass pointing to truth and life. It invites you to trust the journey, even when the destination is hidden. In the end, faith is the legacy we leave behind. The story told in lives transformed, in love extended, in hope renewed. It is the unshakable conviction that God is good, God is faithful, and God is near. Faith be your guide, your strength, your song. Let it propel you through the storms and lift you on wings of hope. For in faith you find the courage to face tomorrow, the power to overcome today, and the joy of walking hand in hand with the Creator of all. Word count to 98. Waiting for go. Banja noi goi. Section A. On. The heart is a battlefield, and the war is unseen. It is fought not with swords or shields, but with thoughts and choices, with desires and fears. The enemy does not wear armor. It lurks in the shadows of doubt, whispering lies that chip away at the soul's fortress. But the warrior within must rise, girded with truth, wielding the sword of righteousness, and clothed in the armor of faith. Every day the heart is challenged to choose. Will it yield to the fear that paralyzes, or will it leap into the unknown fueled by trust? Will it close itself off to love's invitation, or open wide to the healing that only grace can bring? The battle is intimate, personal, fierce, and yet it is the very crucible where courage is born. To guard the heart is to recognize its value, to honor its sacredness. The heart is more than muscle and blood. It is the wellspring of life, the place where spirit and flesh meet. When the heart is strong, the whole being is strong. When the heart falters, everything else trembles. Protecting it is not about walls, but about vigilance and surrender. A paradox of strength and vulnerability. The enemy's greatest weapon is distraction. Noise that pulls the heart away from the divine, from what truly matters. It is the lure of comfort at the expense of purpose, the seduction of self at the cost of sacrifice. But the heart that listens can hear the whisper beneath the chaos, the call to return, to repent, to renew. In the quiet, the heart becomes a sanctuary, a place where God's voice is heard clearly. It is here that transformation begins, where old wounds are touched by grace and brokenness is made whole. The heart is a garden that requires tending, pruning away bitterness, watering with forgiveness, planting seeds of hope. Love is the heart's true language. It speaks without words, moves without sound, and transforms without effort. Love reaches where logic cannot, heals where medicine fails, and binds where division threatens. To love is to unlock the heart's deepest chamber and invite another in, to risk vulnerability and receive in return. Yet the heart is fragile, often betrayed by the very ones it loves. Pain can make it recoil, suspicion can build walls, and fear can chain it down. But even in the darkest moments, the heart can choose to hope, to believe in restoration, to open again. For the heart is resilient, designed for renewal and rebirth. The heart is also the seat of joy, not the fleeting happiness of circumstance, but the deep abiding joy that comes from knowing you are cherished, chosen, and never alone. This joy is a light that no shadow can dim, a song that no silence can still. It is the heartbeat of the soul's celebration. To cultivate a heart alive with faith is to cultivate a heart at peace. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of God within the turmoil. It is a refuge, a harbor where the restless soul finds rest. This peace surpasses understanding because it rests not on external conditions, but on the unshakable character of the divine. The heart that trusts becomes a vessel of grace, pouring out mercy to a thirsty world. It is a light that shines in dark places, a balm to the broken, a hope to the hopeless. When the heart is surrendered, it becomes a channel for God's love to flow freely and abundantly. But surrender is not passive. It is an act of yielding, a daily choice to align with the divine will. It means laying down control, embracing humility, and walking by the Spirit. Surrender opens the heart to a power beyond itself, a strength that transforms weakness into triumph. The heart's journey is a pilgrimage of faith. It travels through valleys of shadow and peaks of glory, learning to discern the voice of truth from the noise of fear. It is shaped by every experience, every encounter, every prayer whispered in the stillness of night. Forgiveness is the heart's liberation. To forgive is to release the chains of bitterness and resentment that bind the soul. It is a gift given not just to the offender, but to the self. A declaration that the past will not dictate the future. Forgiveness frees the heart to love again, to hope again, to live again. The heart thrives in connection. Isolation starves it. Community nourishes it. The presence of others who walk the journey alongside you is a reminder that you are not alone, that your struggles are shared and your victories celebrated. The heart finds strength in unity, courage in fellowship. Gratitude is the heartbeat's anthem. When the heart focuses on blessings rather than burdens, it shifts the entire landscape of the soul. Gratitude turns what we have into enough and more. It opens the door to joy, peace, and contentment, inviting the heart to dance in the light of grace. The heart's deepest cry is for meaning, for purpose, for a love that transcends the fleeting. It longs to know it is part of something greater, to live a life that echoes beyond itself. This longing is God's whisper in the chambers of the soul calling you home. In the end, the heart's greatest victory is to love without fear, to hope without despair, to trust without wavering. It is the triumph of the spirit over circumstance, the courage to stand firm when the world shakes. The heart, when fully alive, is a testament to the enduring power of faith. Guard your heart, for in it lies the wellspring of life. Let it be a heart of courage, a heart of grace, a heart that beats in rhythm with the eternal. And in this sacred space find your true self, the child of God, loved beyond measure, called to a life of purpose and promise. Word count 192, waiting for go. Banjanoi go yanoi section. David, in the crucible of life, character is forged not in comfort but in the fires of trial and perseverance. It is the unseen masterpiece crafted quietly beneath the surface, sculpted by choices made when no eyes are watching. True character is not a mask worn for applause, but the soul's integrity revealed when everything else falls away. It is the echo of one's deepest convictions, the silent promise kept in the face of temptation and fear. We live in a world desperate for authenticity, yet so often distracted by superficiality. Character stands as a beacon amid the shifting sands of culture, a foundation that does not crumble under pressure. It is the anchor that holds us steady in the storms of life, the compass that points unwaveringly toward truth. Without character, success is hollow and accomplishments are mere shadows. The trials that come are not punishments, but refining flames meant to remove the dross and leave only the pure gold of the spirit. Each hardship carries within it a lesson, a chance to grow stronger, to rise higher. The pain endured in silence becomes the strength displayed in victory. To cultivate character is to embrace the challenge, to face the fire, knowing that it is shaping something eternal. Humility is the cornerstone of character. It is not weakness but wisdom, recognizing our limitations while trusting in a power greater than ourselves. Humility allows us to listen, to learn, to be transformed. It softens the hardened by pride and opens the door to grace. The humble soul knows that true greatness is measured not by titles or riches, but by love lived and lives touched. Integrity is the soul's promise to be whole and true. It is the unbroken thread that runs through every action, every word, every thought. Integrity means choosing right over easy, truth over convenience. It demands courage. Courage to stand alone. Courage to say no when all else says yes. In a fractured world, integrity becomes the glue that holds us together. Faith deepens character. It is the invisible hand that steadies us when the path is uncertain. The quiet voice urging us forward when fear threatens to turn us back. Faith is not blind optimism, but a confident trust rooted in the character of God, whose love never fails and whose promises endure beyond the veil of time. To walk by faith is to walk with a heart anchored in hope. Character reveals itself most clearly in moments of decision, when shortcuts beckon, when dishonesty tempts, when bitterness threatens to take root. These moments are the crossroads where the soul either bends or stands tall. Choosing the narrow way is hard, costly even, but it leads to a life rich in meaning and peace. The character formed here is a legacy not only for ourselves, but for those who follow. Patience is the silent strength of character. It teaches us to wait, to endure, to trust the timing of a divine plan that we cannot yet see. Patience with others, patience with ourselves. Patience in the face of delay and disappointment. Each is a seed planted for future fruit. Character grows in the soil of waiting, nurtured by faith and watered by grace. Compassion flows naturally from character that has been tested and tempered. The person who knows suffering is moved not to judgment, but to mercy. Compassion breaks down walls and builds bridges, healing wounds invisible to the eye. It is a reflection of God's heart poured out through human hands, bringing light where there was darkness. Character does not isolate, but connects. It calls us beyond ourselves into a community, bound by shared struggles and mutual support. In the fellowship of the faithful, character is encouraged and challenged, stretched and strengthened. Together we become more than the sum of our parts, a living testament to the power of God's transforming love. Generosity is a fruit of character, a willingness to give not because we have abundance, but because we have recognized the abundance given to us. It is a sacred act of trust, a declaration that love multiplies when shared. The generous heart knows the joy of blessing others, of being an instrument of hope and provision in a world that thirsts for kindness. Courage and character walk hand in hand. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the resolve to act in spite of it. Character fuels that resolve, reminding us why we fight. Because some things are worth standing for, worth sacrificing for. It is courage that enables the soul to face injustice, to speak truth, to hold fast to values when all else seems lost. Forgiveness is perhaps the greatest test of character. To forgive is to break the cycle of hurt, to choose healing over bitterness, peace over vengeance. It demands a strength born not of human will alone, but of divine grace working within us. Forgiveness frees the soul from the chains of the past, allowing character to flourish in the light of freedom. The character shaped by faith is a light in a darkened world. It stands as a testimony to the power of God's love to change hearts, to renew lives. When character shines through, it points others to a hope beyond themselves, a peace that passes understanding. It whispers in the silence that God is real and that He is working in the lives of those who trust Him. Each day offers a choice to conform to the patterns of this world, or to be transformed by the renewing of the mind. Character is built in those choices, sometimes small, sometimes monumental, but always shaping the soul's trajectory. It is the daily battle won not by might, but by faith, hope, and love. In the end, character is the legacy we leave behind. It is the story told when words fail, the echo that lingers long after we are gone. It is the seed planted in the hearts of others, growing into trees of righteousness and peace. To live with character is to live with purpose, to shine with the light of eternity. Guard your character as fiercely as your heart, for they are intertwined, one reflecting the strength of the other. Let your life be a testament to a faith lived boldly, a hope carried unwaveringly, a love poured out relentlessly. In this you find not only your true self, but the reflection of God's glory shining through you. There is a sacred rhythm to life, a divine pulse that calls us to move beyond the noise of the world and enter into a deeper communion with the eternal. In the stillness of our hearts, when the clutter fades and the chaos quiets, we hear the whisper of God, the gentle voice that beckons us to peace, to truth, to the profound rest that only He can give. This rest is not the shallow relief of escape, but the deep soul's satisfying calm that anchors us in the storms of existence. We are restless creatures, ever searching for meaning, for connection, for a place to lay down our burdens. The world offers countless distractions, pleasures that fade, achievements that crumble, applause that dies away, but none can fill the void within. It is a hunger that only God can satisfy, a longing woven into the fabric of our being by the Creator's own hand. To find this rest, we must surrender the illusion of control and trust in His sovereign care. Stillness is an act of courage in a culture obsessed with motion. To stop, to listen, to be present with God is to resist the pull of constant doing and frantic striving. In this sacred pause, we lay bare souls, stripping away pretenses and defenses, allowing God to speak directly to the heart's deepest needs. It is here that transformation begins, not with grand gestures, but with the quiet work of grace shaping us from within. The sacred rhythm invites us to move with intentionality, to dance in step with God's timing, rather than the world's relentless pace. There is a divine order in the seasons of waiting and action, in moments of silence and bursts of praise. To live in this rhythm is to align ourselves with the heartbeat of heaven, finding strength in surrender and freedom in obedience. Faith is the bridge that carries us from turmoil to tranquility. It is the trust that God is good even when circumstances scream otherwise, that His purposes are greater than our pain. Faith anchors us in the unseen, the eternal, the promises etched into the soul by a faithful God who never abandons His own. When we walk this path, fear loses its grip and anxiety yields to assurance. Within the sacred rhythm lies the power of renewal. Like the morning sun chasing away the night, God's presence renews our weary spirits, refreshing our minds and healing our brokenness. This renewal is not a fleeting moment, but a continual outpouring of life, a river of grace flowing into every crevice of our being. In this flow we find courage to face each day, a new hope to endure the darkest nights. Surrender is the key that unlocks the door to this rhythm. It means releasing our need to control outcomes, to dictate the script, to carry burdens meant for God alone. Surrender is not weakness but strength. The strength to trust beyond what we can see, to rest in the certainty of God's love and power. It is a daily act of faith that transforms resistance into peace. The sacred rhythm also calls us to embrace vulnerability. To be still before God is to expose our wounds, our fears, our doubts, not hiding them, but bringing them into the light of His presence. Vulnerability is not defeat, but the doorway to healing. For God meets us not in our perfection, but in our brokenness. His grace flows freely where humility reigns. In this divine dance, prayer becomes more than words. It becomes breath, lifeblood connection. Prayer in the sacred rhythm is a dialogue, a two-way street where we pour out our hearts and listen with expectant silence. It is the sacred meeting place where heaven touches earth, where our spirits are knit with the Spirit of God, and our lives find their true direction. Listening is perhaps the greatest gift we can give ourselves in this rhythm. To hear God's voice above the clamor requires intentional stillness and a heart tuned to His frequency. Listening cultivates wisdom, revealing paths we would never choose on our own, and opening doors of opportunity hidden by doubt and fear. It draws us closer into the mystery of God's plan. The sacred rhythm invites us to rest in God's presence, to find refuge from the storm. This rest is a sanctuary for the soul, a holy space where peace flows like a river, and joy blossoms even in hardship. It is a place beyond understanding, where sorrow is met with comfort, loneliness with companionship, despair with hope. Grace is the thread woven through this rhythm, unearned, abundant, and life-giving. Grace meets us in our weakness, carrying us when we cannot stand, lifting us when we fall. It reminds us that we are held by a love that never falters, a mercy that never runs dry. In grace, the sacred rhythm finds its fullest expression, binding our hearts to God's forever. The rhythm calls us to community. For though stillness is personal, it is never meant to isolate. In the fellowship of believers, we find mirrors reflecting God's grace, encouragement to keep the rhythm and strength to endure the journey. Together we form a symphony of faith, each voice contributing to the harmony of God's kingdom. Hope blooms within the sacred rhythm, a seed planted in the soil of patience and watered by faith. It is the confident expectation that God's goodness will prevail, that every trial carries a purpose, that light follows even the darkest night. Hope is the fuel that keeps us moving, the song that rises when words fail, the promise that we are never forsaken. To live in this sacred rhythm is to live fully awake, eyes fixed on the eternal, heart open to grace, spirit attuned to love. It is to walk a path marked by peace, perseverance, and purpose. It is the journey of becoming the unfolding of God's masterpiece in and through us. Let this rhythm guide you beyond the chaos into a life rich with meaning and peace. In its cadence find rest for your weary soul, courage for the battle ahead, and a hope that will not be shaken. In the sacred rhythm, discover the heart of God pulsing within you, steady, strong, eternal. The mind, untamed and unguarded, is a battlefield where destinies are won or lost. It is in this sacred space, unseen by the world, unknown to others, that the war rages most fiercely. Thoughts do not merely pass like clouds across the sky. They take root, they grow, they shape us. A single unchecked thought can become a fortress. A lie believed can become a lens through which all truth is distorted. And yet here is the great deception. Many walk through life unaware of this battle. They assume their thoughts are harmless passengers, mere flashes, opinions, fleeting emotions. But in reality, every thought is a seed, and every seed, whether born of truth or born of fear, will eventually bear fruit. This is the law of the mind. What is sown will grow, and what grows will define the direction of your life. So ask yourself, what are you planting? Are you cultivating thoughts of strength, purpose, peace? Or are you feeding bitterness, fear, jealousy, and self-pity? The world will not stop planting in your mind. From every glowing screen, every careless word, every whisper of comparison, seeds are being sown. And not all seeds are from God. You must become the gatekeeper of your mind, not by fear, but by discernment. You are not a victim of every thought that enters. You are the master of what stays. Let the unworthy pass. Let the dark thoughts die unwatered. Let the lies wither in the light of truth. Because your mind is not a playground. It is a fortress, and it must be defended as such. Too many live tormented, not because of external enemies, but because they've surrendered their thoughts to voices that do not speak from heaven. The mind replays every past mistake, amplifies every insecurity, rehearses every insult. It binds you to what was, blinding you to what could be. But God did not create your mind to be a prison of torment. He made it to be a garden of faith, a temple where His Spirit dwells. What is planted in that temple must reflect His nature. God does not speak in chaos. He does not plant fear. He does not plant fear. He does not water despair. So when those thoughts come, those invasive weeds of fear, confusion, shame, you must call them what they are, intruders. Do not entertain them. Do not let them speak. Do not give them a seat at your table. Speak truth. Speak light. Speak life. You have been given the authority to cast down every thought that rises against the knowledge of God. That authority is not passive. It does not whisper. It commands. It stands guard at the gates of your mind and says, "This does not belong here." It builds a wall of truth so high that lies cannot climb it. It cultivates an inner life so filled with God that darkness has no room to breathe. This is not mere positivity. This is spiritual warfare. The battle for your future is fought in the silence of your inner world. Every day, every moment, you are choosing which thoughts will rule. And with each thought you are shaping your life, your relationships, your purpose. There is no neutrality. You are either feeding the truth or feeding the lie. But here is the hope. No matter how long the lies have lived in your mind, they can be evicted. No matter how deep the roots of fear have grown, they can be pulled out. The ground of your mind can be cleared, healed, and replanted. It begins with recognition, then rejection, then replacement. You must identify what does not belong. Name the fear, name the doubt, name the lie. And then with the authority of God's word, cast it down. Speak aloud if you must. Let your voice echo louder than the whispers. Let the truth become a declaration. I am not forgotten. I am not defeated. I am not what fear says I am. Then replace it not with empty affirmations, but with eternal truth. God's word is not theory. It is seed. Plant it deep. Meditate on it until it becomes the native language of your thoughts. Let it take root until it grows into confidence, clarity, and peace. The word of God is not merely read. It is consumed. It is absorbed. It is lived. And the more you fill your mind with truth, the more you will starve the lies. Starvation is not always a struggle. It is simply neglect. When you stop feeding a thought, it dies. When you stop repeating the wound, it begins to heal. When you stop replaying the failure, you make room for vision again. This is the rhythm of transformation. Reject, replace, renew, but this is not a one-time act. This is a discipline, a rhythm, a choice made in silence, in solitude, in the quiet hours when no one is watching. This is the work behind the scenes, and those who commit to it will walk in a peace that others cannot understand. Not because life is easier, but because their minds are stronger. You must build this fortress daily with gratitude, with worship, with silence, with discipline. You must train your thoughts like a warrior trains his sword, not carelessly, not casually, but with intensity and purpose. Because the mind left untrained will drift, and a drifting mind will always be vulnerable to attack. Your mind must become a place where God feels at home, a place of truth, of faith, of reverence, a place where worry is replaced with worship, where fear is drowned by the presence of God, where clarity reigns and confusion is exiled. And the beauty of it all, when your mind is aligned with God, your life begins to follow, your decisions become wiser. Your reactions become calmer, your relationships become richer, your purpose becomes clearer. You no longer move through life driven by emotion or impulse, but led by conviction, anchored, rooted, steady. Do not underestimate the power of a renewed mind. It is the beginning of transformation, the spark of destiny, the key to unlocking what God has already placed inside you. The world will try to shape your mind into its mold, but you are not of this world. You were created to think higher, to believe deeper, to see through the lens of eternity. So today, choose to fight, not with fists, but with faith, not with anger, but with truth. Raise the standard in your thoughts, guard the gates, and when the battle rages, remember the victory does not come from striving, it comes from surrender. Not to the thought, but to the one who created your mind, who fills it with light, and who fights for your peace. Peace does not come when the storm ends. Peace begins when God becomes your atmosphere. Not just your refuge in crisis, not just your comfort in loss, but your oxygen, your air, your breath, your very mind's rhythm. A mind anchored in God is no longer reactive. It becomes rooted, grounded in something deeper than circumstance, untouched by the turbulence of the world. But this kind of peace is not stumbled upon. It is not found in quiet corners or borrowed from temporary relief. It is built, crafted intentionally by a mind that chooses again and again to return to truth. It is born in the war zone of the soul, where lies are silenced and remembrance is practiced like breathing. It is forged in discipline, in the daily surrender of thought, emotion, and impulse to the one who is higher. And yet we live in a generation intoxicated by noise, constant input, endless opinions, flashing lights, rapid scrolling. We are absorbing more than we can ever process, letting our attention be divided into fragments, letting our peace be stolen by voices that do not care for our souls. This is not harmless, it is warfare. Every word we hear, every image we absorb, every voice we permit into our silence, these things plant seeds. Some seeds bring life, most don't. And while we drown in distraction, the enemy sows his subtle lies. You're not enough. You'll never change. No one cares. You are alone. But listen, those are not your thoughts, and they are not God's thoughts either. If the enemy cannot destroy you, he will distract you. If he cannot bring chaos from the outside, he will whisper lies on the inside. He doesn't always need a crisis to defeat you. Sometimes all he needs is your unguarded attention. And this is how many lose the battle, not with a sword, but with a scream. Not in a storm, but in stillness corrupted by the wrong input. So you must be vigilant, be ruthless with what you allow into your mind. Don't apologize for protecting your peace. Don't feel guilty for cutting off what corrupts. This is not legalism, it is survival. You are not just guarding your thoughts, you are guarding your future. You are guarding your children's inheritance, your relationships, your anointing. The mind unchecked becomes a breeding ground for pride. And pride is not always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's the whisper that says you don't need God today. Sometimes it shows up when life is good. When the bills are paid, the body is strong, the sun is shining, and you let down your guard. That's when pride creeps in. That's when self-reliance takes the throne where God should sit. But the moment your thoughts forget the source of your strength, decline begins. Not always a fall, sometimes just a drift, a slow detour from the path of clarity. A subtle numbness that replaces the fire you once carried. You begin to lean on your own understanding. You begin to forget to pray, forget to wait, forget to listen. And before long, you're moving but not led, busy but not fruitful, loud but not filled. Understand, the enemy doesn't need to steal your calling. He only needs to seduce your thinking. If he can get you to rely on yourself, if he can get you to forget your source, if he can get you to accept the lie that you've arrived without God, then he's already won. So how do you fight back? Not with fear, not with striving, but with remembrance. Remembrance is a weapon. It is the anchor that keeps your thoughts from drifting. It is the light that exposes the shadows. It is the stillness in which you remember who God is and who you are because of him. When you wake, remember when you walk. Remember when you're praised. Remember when you're attacked. Remember. Speak it, sing it. Write it, carve it into the rhythm of your days. Let the remembrance of God become your reflex, your anchor, your defense. Because a mind filled with remembrance cannot be filled with fear. A mind anchored in gratitude cannot be drowned in complaint. A mind rooted in truth cannot be shaken by lies. This is not just spiritual encouragement. This is life and death. Your ability to remember what God has done, what God has said, who God is. This is what will sustain you in the darkest nights. It is not the strength of your emotion that keeps you. It is the strength of your remembrance. And don't be fooled. This kind of peace, this kind of clarity, this kind of spiritual discipline, it is not flashy. It won't always be noticed by others. In fact, some will not understand the calm you carry. Some will wonder why you don't panic like they do, why you don't crumble under pressure, why you seem so grounded when everything around you shakes. Let them wonder. They don't know the hours you spent in silence. They haven't seen the battles you fought in the solitude of your mind. They don't know the prayers you've whispered when no one was watching. They don't know the discipline it takes to tune out the world and tune into heaven. But you know and God knows. And that is enough, because in the end your life will not be built on applause. It will be built on alignment. Your fruit will not come from popularity. It will come from purity of thought, of focus, of heart. And that begins not in the hands but in the mind. So train it, guard it, consecrate it. Let your thoughts be shaped by the still waters of God's truth, not the crashing waves of worldly noise. Let his word be the mirror that reflects your identity. Let his promises be the fuel that drives your hope. Let his presence be the atmosphere your thoughts live and breathe in. This is not just mental health. This is spiritual wholeness. This is not motivational talk. This is divine alignment, and it changes everything. When your thoughts are rooted in God, your mind becomes a weapon against darkness. Your inner life becomes a shelter for others. Your peace becomes a testimony. Your focus becomes a signal fire, lighting the way for those lost in confusion. You don't need to raise your voice. Your thoughts will raise your life. And that life anchored in truth, forged in discipline, rooted in remembrance, will speak louder than anything the world could offer. Peace is not the absence of the storm. It is the presence of God in your mind. And everything will change. Imagine a mind so full of God that there is no room left for fear. A mind so drenched in truth that lies evaporate on contact. A mind so trained in stillness, in reverence, in divine remembrance, that anxiety suffocates before it even finds a foothold. That mind is not a fantasy, it's a reality. One that begins the moment you choose to protect what belongs to God. Your thoughts were never meant to be the enemy's playground. Your imagination wasn't meant to be hijacked by fear or lust or shame. Your mental space was created to be sacred ground, a temple, a sanctuary, a place where heaven speaks, where God walks, where peace breathes. But many have turned this temple into a marketplace. They've opened the doors wide to anything: news, gossip, distraction, desire, and they wonder why God feels so distant. He hasn't moved, he hasn't stopped speaking, but his voice is being drowned out by the noise you've allowed in. This is why Jesus turned over the tables in the temple, because sacred spaces cannot be shared with chaos. And your mind is no different. You must drive out what doesn't belong. You must flip the tables of distraction, greed, bitterness, comparison. You must say, this space is for God. This is where he dwells. No other voices are welcome here. Your thoughts become the furniture of your inner life. Every thought you accept becomes something you sit on, lean against, walk around, and over time, if you aren't careful, your temple becomes cluttered with things God never placed there. The voices of old wounds, the furniture of false identity, the clutter of unmet expectations. And slowly what should be holy becomes heavy. But you can clear it out. You can start again. The mind is not concrete, it's clay. And in the hands of the potter, it can be reshaped, renewed, restored. God doesn't just cleanse your soul, he cleanses your thoughts, but you must let him in. You must allow him to speak louder than the voices of trauma, louder than the whispers of failure, louder than the echo of that one mistake you've replayed 1,000 times. He's not playing it anymore. Why are you? There is a lie that many believe, that because a thought enters your mind, it must belong to you. But no, some thoughts are intruders. Some thoughts are spies sent from the enemy to gather intel, to sow fear, to disrupt peace. Just because a thought shows up doesn't mean it deserves to stay. Not everything that knocks at your mental door should be welcomed. Not every thought is a guest. Some are thieves. Some come only to steal your peace, kill your confidence, destroy your destiny. And the only way to stop them is to become a vigilant gatekeeper. Stand watch at the gates of your mind. Don't let bitterness sneak in disguised as reflection. Don't let anxiety masquerade as preparedness. Don't let comparison wear the mask of ambition. Call them what they are. Rebuke them. Cast them out. Fill the space with truth before the lies return. Because here's the truth. What you allow in your mind begins to live in your spirit. It doesn't stop at the thought. It seeps into your emotions, your posture, your reactions, your relationships. If you tolerate fear in your mind, it will show up in your voice. If you allow insecurity to sit in your thoughts, it will echo in how you see yourself. But if you fill your mind with God, if you meditate on his promises, remember his victories, rehearse his word, then strength will rise in you. Peace will walk beside you. Confidence will clothe you like armor. You will not have to fight every battle. Some storms will pass because they cannot touch a fortified mind. And that kind of mind, oh, how rare it is. A mind that does not need validation from people. A mind that isn't swayed by likes or comments or opinions. A mind that knows who it belongs to. A mind that bows only to truth, not trend. That kind of mind terrifies the enemy because it's not easily shaken. It doesn't flinch under fire. It remembers who God is, even in the dark. And that kind of mind is built daily, silently, repeatedly. You build it in the morning when you wake and whisper gratitude before grabbing your phone. You build it when you pause in traffic to remember that delay doesn't mean denial. You build it when you speak truth over your reflection in the mirror instead of criticism. You build it when you choose worship over worry, when you choose silence over slander. when you choose truth over what feels good. The mind of God is not about ignoring reality. It's about anchoring yourself in a greater one. It's about seeing past what's visible and leaning on what's eternal. It's about living above the noise, thinking higher, loving deeper, choosing better, not because you are strong, but because you are surrendered. And in that surrender, a shift happens. Your reactions change. Your conversations change. Your dreams expand. Your relationships find new depth. And people begin to notice. Not because you're louder, but because you're lighter. You carry peace. You leak it. You wear it. And without saying a word, you become a message. You stop living as a reaction to your past and start living as a response to God's presence. You stop fighting for control and start flowing in purpose. And when the storm comes, and it will come, it no longer owns you. Because peace is not in the absence of trouble. Peace is found when God rules your thoughts. This is your inheritance, not torment, not confusion, not cycles of guilt, but clarity, strength, sacred silence, holy discipline, unshakable peace. But it comes at a price, the price of your attention. What you focus on becomes your reality. And if your mind is full of God, then your life will overflow with grace. So imagine it. A life where fear doesn't dictate your decisions. A life where you can rest, not just sleep, but rest. A life where joy isn't circumstantial. Where love isn't fragile. Where peace isn't a guest, but a resident. That life begins with your thoughts. And that life is waiting. You were never created to be ruled by the chaos in your mind. You were not designed to be tossed around by every emotion, imprisoned by every anxious whisper, or held hostage by memories that have overstayed their welcome. You were crafted by a holy God to carry holy thoughts, to walk in holy clarity, to live with a mind that mirrors heaven, not hell. And yet so many today walk with cluttered thoughts, buried beneath the debris of mental noise. They are exhausted, not from work but from worry, weighed down not by life itself, but by the weight of what-ifs and should-haves. They are stuck not in reality but in patterns of thinking that were never meant to last. Thoughts are not harmless. They are seeds, and every day you are planting something. Some seeds grow into peace. Others grow into panic. Some grow into strength, others into shame. But make no mistake, what you meditate on multiplies. You don't need to be surrounded by enemies to be under attack. The greatest war is often fought in silence, behind your smile inside your mind. And most people will never see the battles you fight there. But God does. And He's not silent in your suffering. He is speaking. But are you still enough to hear Him? This generation is loud. The volume of distraction has reached a deafening level. Opinions are everywhere. Noise is constant. Entertainment is endless. Screens flash. Voices shout. Algorithms echo your own confusion back to you. And all the while, your soul forgets what stillness feels like. We scroll through chaos, we swipe through crisis, and somehow we wonder why peace feels so distant. You cannot fill your mind with noise and expect to hear the whisper of God. You cannot feast on fear and expect to be full of faith. Some of the emptiness you feel is not a crisis of purpose. It's a famine of quiet, a drought of depth, a starvation of truth. We've been feeding on distraction and starving our souls, but it doesn't have to stay this way. You can cut through the noise. You can tune your mind to the frequency of heaven. You can step away from the world's megaphone and draw near to the still small voice that never stops speaking. Because here's the thing, peace isn't passive. Peace is not what happens when the storm stops. Peace is what happens when your heart becomes still in the storm. And that kind of peace is not the result of perfect circumstances. It's the result of divine focus. Focus is the gatekeeper of your peace. What you look at long enough will shape what you become. And the enemy knows this. He doesn't always need to destroy you. Sometimes he only needs to distract you. A scrolling thumb can be more dangerous than a sword if it takes your eyes off God. The attack isn't always obvious. It's subtle. A little compromise, a delayed prayer, a quiet comparison, a harmless comment that stays lodged in your memory for weeks. Slowly, almost invisibly, your focus shifts, and with it, your peace begins to evaporate. Guarding your mind isn't about fear. It's about freedom. It's about choosing what deserves space in your sacred temple. It's about realizing that just because something is common doesn't mean it's holy. Just because everyone's thinking, it doesn't mean it's from God. You are not a sponge for the world's emotions. You are not a slave to the opinions of strangers. You are not required to think what your past trained you to think. You have been given the authority through Christ to take every thought captive. That means you no longer let your thoughts run free. You don't let them wander through every regret, linger in every offense, or build houses in every fear. You become the master of your mental house. You decide who gets in. And if a thought doesn't line up with God's word, it has no right to stay. You are not just protecting your peace, you're protecting your future. Because the thoughts you allow today become the life you live tomorrow. If your mind is a battlefield, then your focus is your weapon. Wield it with wisdom. And remember, focus is not just about avoiding bad things. It's about fixing your eyes on the right things. It's about filling your mind with what is eternal, what is noble, what is pure, what is praiseworthy. It's about meditating not on problems but on promises. That doesn't mean you ignore pain. It means you interpret pain through the lens of God's presence. You don't deny the storm. You declare that your anchor is stronger. You don't close your eyes to the wind. You remind yourself who walks on the water. And that shift changes everything. Because a focused mind is a fierce mind. A clear mind is a dangerous mind to the enemy. A peaceful mind is not weak. It's powerful. It can build dreams. It can restore relationships. It can stand through seasons of uncertainty without crumbling. When you live with focused thoughts, you start walking with purpose. You speak less but say more. You stop reacting to every voice around you and start responding to the voice within you. You stop chasing noise and start cultivating clarity. And soon people will notice, not because you're louder, but because you're unshaken. You'll begin to carry peace into rooms where chaos used to reign. You'll start to lead with calm where others lead with control. You'll stop needing to prove yourself because you'll be rooted in who God says you are. And when temptation whispers, you'll answer with truth. When fear knocks, you won't even open the door. When comparison creeps in, you'll remember your calling. When distraction invites you, you'll choose the better portion. This is not just about mental health. It's about spiritual warfare. Your mind is a battleground, but it's also a birthplace. It's where God plants his promises. It's where vision is conceived. It's where faith is forged in the fires of focus. So fight for it. Fight for your clarity. Fight for your sacred stillness. Fight for a mind so full of God that there's no vacancy left for fear. Not tomorrow, not someday, Now, your thoughts do not merely shape your emotions, they shape your existence. And the danger is not always in what you think, but in what you allow to stay. One passing thought can be innocent, but one entertained lie becomes a seed. Water it with insecurity, and it grows into a forest of confusion. Feed it with fear, and it becomes a storm that darkens your horizon. But God is calling you to a higher place, a place where the atmosphere of your mind reflects the clarity of heaven, not the chaos of earth. The battlefield of the mind is sacred, but it is sacred because of what's at stake. And this war is not like the ones you see on the outside. It doesn't start with enemies around you. It begins with whispers within you, thoughts that question your worth, voices that challenge your identity, echoes of failure that disguise themselves as truth. But they are not truth. They are distortions. Shadows cast by trauma, silence, and wounds not yet healed. And they do not belong in the temple of your mind. Because your mind, yes, your mind is a sanctuary, not a storage closet for regrets, not a prison cell for shame, not a dark attic where fear collects dust and multiplies in secret. No, your mind was designed to host the presence of God. A place where truth echoes louder than trauma, where peace outshouts panic, where the word of God takes root and pushes out every weed that threatens your soul. But this doesn't happen by accident. It's a discipline, a battle of intention. You must evict every lie that has made itself at home. You must look each thought in the face and ask, who sent you? Because not every voice in your mind is your own. Not every thought that visits was invited by God. And if it wasn't, it has no authority to stay. That means shame has to go. The lie that you're broken beyond repair, it's a squatter. Kick it out. The voice that says you're too far gone, too late, too small, it's not God. He never called you too little. He called you chosen. The thought that tells you to hide, to shrink, to silence your purpose. That thought is sent from hell to derail what heaven is building in you. You don't owe that voice a conversation. You owe it silence. Because peace is not passive, it's fierce. And clarity doesn't come to the careless. It comes to the committed. God cannot be the foundation of your life if he's only a footnote in your thoughts. If you want his peace, you must make him the atmosphere in which every thought is born and every decision is shaped. This is the difference between living led and living lost. The lost mind reacts. The led mind responds. The lost mind doubts, panics, scrambles. The led mind waits, listens, obeys. A led mind isn't perfect. It just knows who the shepherd is. It doesn't have all the answers. It just follows the voice of truth instead of the noise of the crowd. You see, the greatest deception in this generation is not that people have stopped believing in God. It's that they've stopped thinking with him. They think with the world, with Instagram Reels, with Twitter. Debates with culture's latest argument. And soon their minds look more like social media feeds than sanctuaries. But when your thoughts become holy ground, you start to think differently. You start asking new questions. Not what do they think of me, but what does God call me? Not what if I fail, but what if God uses even this for glory? Not how do I compare, but how do I obey? These are the thoughts of the renewed mind. And the renewed mind is a powerful thing. It doesn't just survive. It sees through lies. It sees through shame. It sees through surface level pain to the deeper truth. That every scar was a lesson. Every setback was a setup. And every loss carved out space for something greater to grow. The renewed mind walks into rooms differently. It doesn't seek attention. It carries presence. It doesn't look for applause. It brings peace. It doesn't beg for validation. It stands in identity. This kind of mind cannot be shaken by gossip. It cannot be moved by slander. It cannot be broken by betrayal, because it no longer builds its house on sand. It has found the rock. And when the storm comes, it doesn't fall apart. It stands taller, not because it's stronger than others, but because it is anchored in something deeper than the moment. When you live from that kind of mind, you begin to shift the atmosphere around you. You don't just find peace, you become peace. You don't just receive clarity. You carry it like a torch in the dark. And others will begin to notice not your perfection, but your poise. Not your popularity, but your power. Not your flawless life, but your focused mind. And that's when the enemy gets nervous, because he cannot defeat the person whose thoughts are no longer up for grabs. He can tempt, he can knock, but he can't enter because you've made a decision. You've drawn a line. You've taken back your ground. This is where transformation begins. Not when your circumstances change, but when your thoughts do, when you say no more. This is sacred territory. My mind belongs to God. My peace is not up for negotiation. My purpose is not up for negotiation. My purpose is not up for debate. I am not what my fear says. I am not what my past screams. I am not what the world shouts. I am who God says I am. And I will think like it. You were never created to entertain darkness in your mind. You were made to walk in light, not the flickering light of artificial comfort, the eternal, unwavering light of divine truth. So turn on that light. Let it expose the lies. Let it scatter the shadows. Let it guide your next step. And the one after that, and the one after that. Because clarity isn't a moment. It's a lifestyle. It's 1,000 daily decisions. To choose truth over feelings, faith over fear, identity over insecurity. And with each choice, your mind becomes more of what it was always meant to be. A fortress of faith, a sanctuary of stillness, a temple of truth. And when your thoughts live in that kind of atmosphere, the storms may still come, but they will not shake you. The winds may rise, but they will not move you, because your peace is not built on what you see. It's anchored in who He is. You cannot carry a great calling with small thoughts. You cannot walk in the fullness of God's plan while shackled to the patterns of your past. And yet so many try. They try to ascend with baggage strapped to their minds, climbing mountains of purpose, while dragging the chains of doubt, regret, and fear. But hear this, God will not pour new wine into old wineskins. A renewed life requires a renewed mind. Some of you have been praying for a breakthrough, and heaven is whispering, first change how you think. Because transformation doesn't begin with the outcome, it begins with the outlook. How can you rise into your destiny if your thoughts are still rehearsing defeat? How can you step into power if your inner narrative still speaks the language of fear? God is ready to take you further. But He cannot bless the version of you that refuses to believe Him. Your mind must be lifted before your life can be elevated. The patterns you permit determine the future you experience. Thought by thought, you are either building a temple or digging a grave. What you think in private becomes who you are in public. And no one sees the invisible wars that shape the visible fruit. People may notice the leaves, but God sees the root. And he is calling you to dig deeper, to pull up the old weeds, to replant with his truth, to tend your inner life like a sacred garden, because your future cannot flourish in a soil poisoned by bitterness. Your calling cannot bloom in a mind cluttered with compromise. And your anointing cannot grow where apathy has taken root. You must make space. You must choose new thoughts, because the strength required for what's ahead is hidden in the discipline you practice now. And this discipline, this sacred inner work, does not come easy. It is forged in the silence where no one applauds you. In the mornings when you rise early to seek truth instead of scrolling through noise. In the nights when you reject shame and instead whisper promises from Scripture over your anxious heart. In the moments where you could choose fear, but instead say, God, I trust you. That's the work that heaven sees. That's the work that builds an unshakable mind. Understand this. There is a weight to your thoughts. They carry momentum. And if they remain unchallenged, they can carry you places you were never meant to go. One negative thought left unchecked can become a stronghold. But one truth embraced can become a lighthouse, a beacon, a lifeline in the storm. You've heard enough lies. You've replayed enough regrets. You've recited fear's song long enough. It's time for a new sound in your mind, a new rhythm, a new declaration, one rooted in the promises of the one who made you. One that says, I am not what happened to me. I am not what they said. I am not what I failed at. I am who God has called. I am chosen. I am healed. I am more than a conqueror. Let that declaration echo. Let it interrupt the old patterns. Let it drown out the doubt. Because the enemy does not fear your potential. He fears your alignment. He knows that when your thoughts line up with God's truth, you become unstoppable. So he tries to keep you distracted, tired, scattered, shamed, but no more. This is the hour to rise. And rising doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes rising looks like silence, holy silence, the kind where you pause the chaos and lean into the whisper of God. Sometimes rising looks like restraint, choosing not to react. Not to clap back, not to feed the drama because you're guarding something sacred. Now you're guarding your thoughts like gold, like treasure, because that's exactly what they are. What you meditate on becomes magnified. Think on worry and you will see only threats. Think on truth and you will begin to see purpose in even the pain. Think on gratitude and joy will follow. Think on lies and fear will dominate. Your mind is a mirror. It reflects what you feed it. So feed it life. Feed it light. Feed it scripture, beauty, worship, silence, love, and watch what grows. You weren't created to barely survive your days. You were created to command your thoughts like a captain commands the sea, with clarity, with courage, with vision. Yes, storms will come. Yes, waves will rise, but your anchor is not your feelings. It is your focus. And when your focus is fixed on the one who never changes, you will not be shaken. People may call it strange. Your peace in pressure, your joy in pain, your boldness in the midst of betrayal. Let them wonder. Let them ask. Let your life be a testimony of what it means to think with heaven's wisdom. Because a renewed mind doesn't just change you, it changes the world around you. And make no mistake, others are watching. Your spouse feels the weight of your thoughts. Your children are learning how to process life by observing how you process your own. Your co-workers, your friends, your church, whether they ever say it or not, they are impacted by the state of your mind. So guard it, not just for yourself, for them. You can dress the part, speak the language, perform the rituals, But if your thoughts are still toxic, the fruit will eventually reveal the root. God is not impressed by appearances. He is moved by surrender. And surrender begins when you lay your thoughts before Him and say, not my fear, but your truth. Not my reasoning, but your wisdom. Not my plans, but your purpose. This is how you prepare for more, not with busyness, not with strategy, but with stillness, with daily renewal, with invisible work that heaven never overlooks. Because God is not just calling you higher, He's calling your thoughts higher. He's not just asking for your hands. He wants your head space, your imagination, your inner world. He wants to dwell there. So what kind of mind are you building? What atmosphere are you cultivating? What stories are you still telling yourself? And are they aligned with His truth? If not, it's time to rewrite them. And not with fantasy, with faith. Faith that says, I will not live in cycles of torment. I will not be a victim of my emotions. I will think with the mind of Christ. I will move with the mind of a warrior. I will dream with the imagination of heaven. Is no limit to what God can do through a surrendered, renewed, focused mind. That kind of mind walks into storms with vision. It walks into conflict with calm. It walks into opportunity with confidence. It walks into temptation with power. And most of all, it walks in step with the Spirit. This is the mind you are called to build. And it begins with one choice: to no longer be passive with your thoughts, to no longer let fear write your future, to no longer allow bitterness to borrow space, to no longer accept confusion as your norm. You are called higher, and the climb begins now. You were never meant to drift. You were never meant to wander through life, at the mercy of every fleeting thought, every emotional gust, every whisper of insecurity. You were created with intention, to walk with clarity, to think with conviction, to live with holy focus. And yet how many lie adrift, anchors cut loose, minds scattered, eyes glazed by distraction, hearts led by noise, not truth. But the Spirit of God calls you to fix your thoughts, not on what is temporary, not on what is popular, not on what screams the loudest, but on what is eternal, what is pure, what is noble, what is of God. The battlefield of the soul is not external, it is internal. The war is not fought with fists, but with focus. It's not the storms around you that sink the ship, it's the water that gets inside. And so it is with your mind. You may be surrounded by chaos, but you don't have to let it seep in. Guard your gates, guard your gaze, guard the story you rehearse in silence. Every thought is a seed. Every seed has a harvest. So fear reap paralysis. So bitterness reap brokenness. So comparison reap jealousy. But so peace reap presence. So faith reap strength. So truth reap freedom. And that harvest is not just for you, it's for your family, your marriage, your friendships, your children's children. Because a mind fixed on God becomes a legacy of light. There is a spiritual weight to your thoughts. What you allow in becomes what you pass on. Thoughts don't just shape your mood, they shape your mission. And if your mission is divine, your mind must be guarded like holy ground. You can't afford to let just anything grow there. You must prune. You must purify. You must protect. Because the enemy doesn't need to destroy your life if he can simply distract your mind. He will come in whispers. You're not enough. This is who you'll always be. God's forgotten you. He won't always shout. He often speaks in suggestion, a lingering doubt, a subtle lie, a seed dropped in a moment of weakness, and if it isn't cast down, it takes root, and if it takes root, it grows, and before you know it, you're living a life God never wrote for you, all because of a thought you never rejected. But it doesn't have to be that way. You have been given the authority to take every thought captive. You are not helpless. You are not trapped. You are not at the mercy of your past or your pain. You have been given the mind of Christ, the wisdom of heaven, the spirit of truth. Use it. Stand in it. Speak from it. When anxiety knocks, don't invite it in. Meet it with faith. When shame whispers, respond with grace. When insecurity rises, let God's word be your mirror. Not Instagram, not comparison, not memory, not mistakes, but the word, the unchanging, undying, eternal truth that says you are chosen. You are loved. You are called. This is not self-help. This is not positive thinking wrapped in religious language. This is warfare, sacred warfare, spiritual discipline. The renewing of your mind is not a motivational exercise. It is obedience. It is worship. It is how you prepare a throne for God to sit in your thoughts, because he does not dwell where fear reigns. He does not share his temple with lies. So the question is, what have you made room for? What voices echo in your mind long after the noise stops? What narratives have you made a home for? You must decide. You must draw a line. Either your thoughts will be your sanctuary or your prison. Either they will reflect truth or reinforce torment. And when that decision is made, it must be made again, every morning, every hour, every conversation. Because thoughts are like waves. They keep coming, but you choose which ones to surf. You choose which ones to stand on and which ones to silence. That is the power you hold. Not because you are great, but because God is, and he lives in you. A focused mind is a free mind, and a free mind is a dangerous mind to the kingdom of darkness, because it doesn't panic. It doesn't chase every trend. It doesn't bend to every storm. It knows, it sees, it remembers. It moves with purpose, not panic. It speaks peace in the presence of pain. It loves without needing applause. It forgives without needing closure, because its anchor is deeper than circumstance. And here's the beauty. When your mind is renewed, your reactions change, your decisions shift, your relationships heal, your energy returns, your confidence grows not in yourself but in the one who holds you. Your identity stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you live from. People may not understand. They may say, "Why don't you get angry? Why are you so calm? Why don't you retaliate?" Let them wonder. Let them ask. Because your life becomes a living sermon. One that says, "I don't live by how I feel. I live by what is true." And that truth is Christ. That truth is unshaken. That truth is what makes you unshakable. This is the invitation to think higher, to live deeper, to root yourself not in what is seen, but in what is spoken by God. His word over your past, his truth over your fears, his voice over every other voice. And in that alignment, something shifts. You stop striving. You stop flowing. You stop fearing. You stop fighting. You stop doubting. You stop declaring. You stop declaring. And this declaration isn't loud. It's steady. It's consistent. It's the quiet, fierce resolve that says, this mind belongs to God. This mind will not be a playground for fear. This mind will not be shaped by trauma. This mind will not be molded by the past. This mind is sacred. This mind is sound. This mind is filled with truth. And the world may not see the battles you fight, but God sees. Heaven watches, and your victory does not come in a shout. It comes in the stillness. The choices made when no one is watching. The thoughts surrendered when you're alone. The faith you whisper when you're afraid. That's where strength is born. Because at the end of your life, you won't be held accountable for every thought that crossed your mind, but you will be responsible for the ones you allowed to stay. So choose wisely. Choose truth. Choose freedom. Your mind is not a dumping ground. It is not a landfill for the world's lies. It is not a theater for fear to perform. It is a temple, and God dwells in temples. So make it holy, make it pure, make it His. Not one day today, not someday, this moment. Because the change you're waiting for, the breakthrough, the peace, the clarity, it doesn't start with something new happening around you. It starts with something new being allowed within you. And that something is truth, living, breathing, God-given truth. Let it fill your thoughts. Let it cleanse your mind. Let it become your atmosphere. You've come this far, not by accident but by grace. Every thought surrendered, every lie cast down, every truth embraced has brought you closer to the clarity your soul has craved. But don't stop here. Don't settle for partial peace. Don't be satisfied with a temporary calm. This is the call to completion, to wholeness, to a mind fully and forever aligned with the mind of Christ. Because there is more peace, more strength, more vision, more purpose. But the weight of that more cannot rest on a mind still tied to yesterday's patterns. You cannot walk in divine destiny with human reasoning. You cannot carry heaven's fire in a mind still soaked in fear. The call is deeper. The transformation total. This isn't behavior modification. It's spiritual rebirth. A revolution of thought. A resurrection of identity. And it doesn't come through willpower. It comes through surrender. Surrender of the noise. Surrender of the need to understand. Surrender of the old lies that have taken up too much space in your inner sanctuary. This is holy ground. There is no vacancy for fear here, no room for bitterness, no space for shame, because the Spirit of God does not dwell where lies are entertained. He dwells where truth is enthroned, and that throne is your mind. So clear the clutter, burn the bridges to your old patterns. Stop rehearsing what God has already redeemed. Stop replaying failures that no longer define you. You are not the mistakes you've made. You are not the pain you've endured. You are not the fears you've believed. You are who He says you are, and He says you are His. You don't need another sign. You don't need another confirmation. The invitation has already been written in blood, sealed in spirit, and sent straight to the battlefield of your thoughts. And this is your response to rise. Rise above the noise. Rise above the trauma. Rise above the temptation to return to comfort. Comfort is not your calling. God is. And His calling demands clarity. You cannot afford to think like you used to. Not now. Not when you've been shown the way forward, and the way forward is not louder. It's clearer. Stillness is your strength now. Focus is your weapon. Faith is your compass. And your thoughts, they are no longer drifters in the wind. They are sails filled with the breath of God, carrying you in the direction of destiny. And destiny isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like faithfulness. Sometimes it feels like repetition. Sometimes it's simply choosing again and again to believe the truth when the lie seems easier. And in that choice, power is born. Power to change what once controlled you. Power to bless what once broke you. Power to speak peace in storms you used to fear. You are no longer tossed by the waves. You command them now with the authority of the one who lives in you. So when the thoughts come, and they will, you meet them not with panic, but with presence, God's presence. When anxiety rises, you rise higher. When depression whispers, you answer with worship. When comparison knocks, you respond with contentment. Not because you feel strong, but because your strength is no longer based on how you feel. It's based on who you know. And you know the one who walks on water, the one who speaks to storms, the one who writes identity in scars and turns graves into gardens. That's the voice in your head now. That's the thought that stays. You are no longer ruled by fleeting feelings. You are led by eternal truth. You are no longer a victim of mental warfare. You are a warrior, armed, trained, and unshakable. You are no longer driven by what-ifs. You are grounded in what is and what is true. You are chosen. You are seen. You are loved. You are held. You are called. You are free. Not just when life is easy, but especially when it isn't. Not just on mountaintops, but in valleys, in silence, in shadows, in unknowns. The truth does not change. The truth remains. And when you remain in the truth, you remain in peace. This is your portion. Not confusion, not torment, not chaos. Peace, unshakable, undeniable, immovable peace. Not because storms stop, but because you've learned to sail through them with your mind anchored in heaven. Let that anchor hold. Let it go deep. Let it settle beyond the surface, beyond emotion, beyond understanding. For peace is not the absence of questions. Peace is the presence of God. Even when answers don't come, and when others see you walk through fire without being burned, they'll wonder, let them, because they weren't there in the midnight hours when you wrestled with doubt. They didn't hear the whispers you had to silence. They didn't see the inner war that raged before your outward peace came. But God saw and heaven applauded every victory won in secret. Because those are the victories that shape you, that make you, that crown you. You've learned to master the one thing most ignore, your thoughts. And in mastering them, you've stepped into mastery over your life. Not control, but surrender. Not domination, but discipline. Not arrogance, but alignment. And now you stand, not just healed, but whole. Not just focused, but full. Not just awake, but alive. This is what it means to walk in the mind of Christ. To think as he thinks. To see as he sees. To love as he loves. To trust as he trusts. And when your mind reflects his, your life reflects heaven. You don't have to fear the future. You don't have to relive the past. You don't have to fight your thoughts alone. Because God is with you, not just around you, in you speaking, guiding, holding, correcting, filling every corner of your inner world with peace that passes, understanding, wisdom that surpasses knowledge, and joy that no circumstance can steal. So go now, not in fear, but in faith, not in confusion, but in clarity, not in anxiety, but in authority. Guard your mind, fill it with light. Let it become a sanctuary where heaven makes its home. And remember, this battle isn't just about your peace, it's about your purpose. Because when your mind is ruled by truth, your life becomes a weapon in the hands of God. So sharpen it, refine it, protect it, and walk boldly into the life you were always meant to live. Your mind is holy ground. Let heaven reign there.